Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to Ask for Help, the live show that we do. Well, we should be doing every week, but we haven't in the month of November.
Oh, it starts already, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to comment about this because we've had a very lackluster month in the month of November. I got back from Victoria. I was feeling fine for a couple of days, and then all of a sudden I got the flu, and I've been down pretty much the whole month of November. So, but now I feel better. My stuffiness is pretty much gone in my head. It's now no longer a football. Well, some people might think I still have a big head, but other than that, I'm feeling much better. Thank you, everybody. So nothing has gone out. Anybody that's waiting for stuff, nothing has gone out yet. I will be sending that out soon, probably next week, by the end of next week. And we'll go from there. So what we're going to do, we're not going to do any draws this show. We're going to do our draw on the first Sunday of December, October, November, December. I feel like my mother. She used to go through all the names of the boys in the family till she got to me. So,
well, the worst thing is at the end of the day, I think we made November, instead of being Movember about mustaches and all that good stuff, we made November. We produced nothing.
Yes, we made November. That's right, November. So yeah, and you know, I got, like I said, I got back and I was sick. And the month of November here in Alberta, for anybody that doesn't know and doesn't live in Alberta, November is notorious for Chinooks because of the way the weather changes at this elevation. And as you guys know,
Even today, I
got a little bit of a headache today, but not a migraine. So
I was gonna say you're lucky to be here today. We had another major Chinook wind, which for those of you who don't know is the effect of at the base of a mountain range, because we have the Rocky Mountains to the west and we have prairie lands from us eastward for hundreds of miles. There are these arches of pressure gateways that kind of build up over the mountains, and it causes a huge fluctuation in the atmospheric pressure here, usually results in a high temperature jump. And you've probably seen photos of people in December in the snow rolling around in Speedos and stuff in the snow, and that's because it literally is that warm that it warmed up so quick that the snow can't melt, but it's still really warm out. So it does affect us, unfortunately, and you know, I won't lie, there are several illnesses going around out here, combinations of norovirus, flu, the current pandemic. So there's a lot of logistics as our world changes of finding that. And so from my perspective, although we are doing everything we can, Jess unfortunately came down with a sinus infection and she's been down for 6 days, and I was very lucky this week not to contract that. But you know, things happen, and I thank you all for your patience during this. Likewise, we actually I've been working through a lot of printer issues too, and I know we'll get into the questions soon, but I kind of wanted to share this with you guys right off the bat of the show. I finally have my first successful print in months. I know it's hard to believe. But it might come through a little bit clear here. This here is a Gandalf bust I've had on my server for a while that I've been wanting to print, and this is in Matter 3D's Pet G. It's not their carbon fiber. That's going to be coming soon here. But this one here, you may notice, has a very unique texture on it. And this is using the texture feature in Idea Maker to attach a texture onto any mesh. And I'm just going to, let me see if I can get this light here. I apologize that my lighting is not set up as fancy as I normally would be here. But look at that texture. It's a 2D texture applied right onto a mesh all the way around, and it pops out, and you can define all these features too. So we're going to be talking about these slicers more as we get into December, you know, as everyone's getting their Black Friday printers delivered, or for you lucky Americans who are taking advantage of that $99 Ender 3 promo at Micro Center. We want to show you what your printers are capable of.
Hey, before we go on, I want to say thank you to Morgan Pierce, who gave us a super chat. Welcome back, he says. $5. That always goes into our kitty to help us out. Thank you, Morgan.
Right, I'll try. Hopefully it comes okay on this mic.
All right.
Super chat.
You know, I think I might start using this mic at some point in time.
Oh, yeah, the Super 55.
And then I can get right up nice and close and do that sexy Richard thing that everybody loves.
Honestly, you know, I'm not showing you guys much of the room right now, obviously, because everything that's happening on this side is completely different from what you've seen in the past, and it's just mid-reno. I've got a whole bunch of new tools here that I haven't set up yet. So, for instance, those of you who are in Canada, Canadian Tire has this tool set on for $20, and this is great for those of you who have 3D printers because it gives you all the SAE and metric Allen keys, all the wrenches in this nice little holder.
Oh.
And yeah, it was a bargain of a century. And then Home Depot's got like ratcheting screwdrivers and everything. So I'm building up my tool databases for the winter for when I work on things. But yeah, I mean, I could talk for an hour about all these issues. I'd rather not bore you guys with them yet. I want to answer your questions today here. So,
Yes, so do I.
let's take a look at some of these questions. Let's see here. Photo of mine, our good friend Ann here. Can someone help me with my printing addiction? No, you've come to the wrong party here. You're going for your Alcoholics Anonymous at the liquor store here.
Yeah. we're the guys who are going to tell you buy more.
Yeah. Admittedly, actually, I've slowed down on buying of printers, but I did pick up an Ender 5 from the electronic recyclers in Calgary this week because I got it so cheap because it has no hot end on it. But when I got it home, I looked at it and I'm like, this isn't just a regular Ender 5. Someone did some work on this because it's got the cable for a BL Touch. It's got a not E3D, sorry, the Big Tree Tech E3 screen, the TFT, and it looks like it might have an E3 board on the inside. And so I paid $150 Canadian, and I think I got more than my money's worth out of it in parts alone. So I'm just going to hop through these questions here. Sorry, I'm a little disorganized here. Ben Brady's,
Jerry's having a problem getting on to the VMix social, so we're going to have to
so
take your questions.
Okay, so long story short, guys, I will be reading your questions from the chat on my other screen here, but I won't be typing anything in chat because I'm using my other YouTube account right now. Long story behind that. But I've got, Ben says, I've got an Ender 3 Pro that's driving me nuts, looks like a severely warped bed. Yeah, that's, you know what, that is one thing I would love to see a company do it right. And thanks to the Voron, people are understanding the value of casted aluminum beds versus rolled aluminum beds.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that it becomes extreme enough that you'll be able to get plates for any printer. On my perspective, I have friends who have CNCs, so I've been looking to find cast aluminum sheets here to go and cut my own beds, but the price of cast aluminum is beyond disgusting. It's actually cheaper for me to order a pre-cast, pre-cut bed from overseas, and just with all the crises right now that's happening in Canada with the floods to the west and everything, everything's at a standstill. All of even my 1111 orders still haven't arrived. So, yeah, at the end of the day, beds will always have a lot of deviations on it, and my go-to, just to kind of temporarily get around that, is either rafts or create thicker, higher, slower first layers to go and absorb the gaps in there at the cost of a less clean first layer. You can always go with PET sheets, or I think I do have it off to the side right here right now. One of these, I think they're called FR10 sheets. Angus, Maker's Muse, covered them recently, but they're made for PCB motherboards, and they actually don't work too bad. They're not going to be as flat as, say, a glass sheet, but it does a pretty good job.
Oh, there you go. Jerry is now up and running, she says, so she's good. She's just going through questions now. Right. Just give her a second, guys, and while we talk about that, let's talk about these prize packs. I know we were supposed to be giving away a prize pack every week, or every 2 weeks, pardon me, in November, and we're missing one from October. So the prize packs are we're going to, next Sunday, I just want to explain how we're going to do this. Next Sunday, Brian and I will both be here, and it's going to be our 2021 giveaway. We're just going to put all those names into a hat. We're going to draw 5 names, and if everybody answers, great. We've already got Ben Brady sitting here. I just have to get it to shipping, and I'll just ship them all out at the same time. That way you should have them in time for Christmas, and everybody should get theirs just fine. Because I'm on this side of BC where the flood was, everything going out down south or east or west should be fine. Going west might be a problem, but
Just with that, actually, I just want to give a quick shout out to Matter 3D here. I've been working with and very close. I do actually have family in Victoria, and I had an order that was in transit here. And it actually landed in Burnaby like the night before the flood. And, you know, great guy, really willing to work to make sure the packages come through and all that, because he actually pays for tracking. He doesn't just go and dump something in a mailbox and say it'll show up when it shows up. So if you do have some Matter 3D orders, just be aware that because everything in British Columbia kind of has to go through that lower mainland in order to get to shipping hubs, international might be a little different. It can go out of Vancouver. But I had to send this message to Almond of what Canpar, who's one of the couriers they use, was saying was basically we won't even accept packages going through there for the next little period. And if you try and do it, there's going to be like a 300% markup or something. So they were, you know, they're working the best they can with a disaster of a situation out there. And hopefully this last spell of rain hasn't further impacted the recovery actions of that. So, you know, definitely our American friends, just watch. There are some deals coming up. I don't have anything special for you guys today, but there are some, you know, offers that will be promoting on the Facebook page to get you some good deals on some volume filament orders, and with their free shipping, which I can tell you shipping prices are pricey right now. It's a great quality filament. As I mentioned earlier, and I'm sorry, this camera is not set up for my macro views right now, but this is out of PETG on my machine at, I think I printed about 245 with a 70-degree bed. And it's glossy smooth. It's strong stuff. I can't even flex this. And their PETG so far is absolutely stellar. Obviously, we know how their PLA is, but the PETG and the new products that are coming out from Amen are absolutely fantastic. So please check them out, matter3d.com. And hopefully here this last bit of 2021 will be on the uptick for a really strong 2022.
Yes. I want to, seeing as we're talking about beds, okay, I've got this stuff right here. Anybody's ever seen this? This is what is called real duct DUCT tape. This is a metal aluminum tape that you use to seal off holes and things like that in your ducting. Now, this stuff works amazingly well if your bed is completely warped. And the reason I say that this stuff works amazingly well is because wherever you find those dips, if you're using a caliper of some sort, like a dial caliper, or you're using just your head to tram things, then you're going to see where you've got dips and things like that. But if you've got a hump bed, or even if you've got a dip in the bed, this stuff is really good. And I'll tell you why. Because you can cut it any way you want and lay it in the sections that are the lowest. And it will help to bring that up without causing too much of an air gap between whatever your top is, whether that be a glass or a magnetic or what have you. You put this on the bed, you put your bed material down, and this will help to level things out. It's kind of a cheating way of doing things, but I've used it numerous times with numerous different things, and it has worked very, very well. And Ben says he's got a severely warped bed. Ben, if you've got a warped bed that badly, then I would just replace the bed. Contact the company, and I would replace the bed. So.
Mm-hmm. And you know, the only caveat with this tape, which you might be able to find under, and I'm sorry, my American friends, I'm going to call it aluminium tape, but it's aluminum tape basically. It is a conductive tape. It's basically a thin metal film with an adhesive, and so you just have to be aware if you're using this to play around with your bed, not to wrap it around the underside and potentially come in contact with those heated
traces.
bed contacts, because it will short. The traces are supposed to be coated, but let's be honest, nobody's perfect on coating. There can always be a chance of some electricity seeping through to a conductive source. So just be aware of that. And then, of course, I'm sorry, people are going to kind of harp on me for this, but there is value in BL Touches sometimes right out of the box if there's no hope for that bed. The BL Touch is capable of compensating and really any bed sensor. I'm biased towards the BL Touch because it physically touches the surface, but inductive probes such as the Easy ABL from TH3D or any other, I think Creality now has a Pro BL Touch that brought back the metal pin. Either way, anything that can determine your bed offsets, it can compensate for it. Now, for those of you with Clipper, I've got something really cool I'm working on right now, finalizing the information for you. So stay tuned if you have Clipper, and I think you're going to be very, very happy with something to maximize the usage of bed leveling sensors here. Just moving along here, Rick Landon, sorry, I know you had this question at the top of the hour here. How to find an oversized hob gear for the BMG dual gear extruder for 3mm filament? Well, that's a tough one, and this is something that I am watching very carefully in the 3D printing space, which is product obsolescence. So for those of you who don't know, before, I'm going to say probably 2015 or so and back, 3mm diameter filament was the norm. Now, I'm not an engineer, and maybe if Amin from Matter 3D pops into chat, maybe he knows. The whole economy, they changed over to 1.75, and I think it has to do with melting zones and the effectiveness that you want a thinner filament to pass through it. So the whole industry basically flipped over to 1.75, and now if you have a 3mm machine, unfortunately it's becoming harder to get filament, but right now is a golden era where everyone's clearing out all that old 3mm filament because they don't want to grind it down and remanufacture it. So pardon me, I know Spool 3D in Calgary is having a big sale on filament on Monday. That's like 20% off, and a lot of it is 3mm old filament that it'll probably run fine if you have those machines, and you'll be saving huge amounts on it. So basically, it's cool that you can save some money right now, but I would be looking in the long term at moving, if you will, to converting your setup to 1.75. Now that gear are very, very particular to Bondtech. In fact, I have a hard time finding the 1.75 variants for some of the Bondtech gears without just buying direct from them. So I would, at this point, unfortunately, I would recommend reaching out to Bondtech. I think it's bondtech.se is their main website, and see if they can ship you a batch of like 10 of them to keep your machine going in the long run. Unfortunately, after that, you may be looking at moving to the 1.75. Without having a piece of 3mm filament on me, I couldn't tell you if swapping out the two gears to 1.75 versions would have a noticeable impact on the machine. Mechanically wise, it shouldn't, but if there's not enough grip for it, then it won't move. I'm just gonna kind of jump back on the list here. Sorry guys, this is a little bit of fun here catching up. Where is it here? Okay, World Planet Gadget, I apologize, I can't pull up the question on the screen here, but it says, has a problem with making a print with 3 colors in print. I put the bar, the plus button, and slice again, but my Ender 3 doesn't go in pause. Okay, so...
Okay.
Sorry, Richard, just while you were away, I was just reading World Planet Gadgets. Oh, perfect. We got the question right up there. So, for those of you who don't know, pausing filament is usually a G code in the machine.
Yes.
M600, if I recall right off the bat, for Marlin. For other slicers, it can vary. Where this gets really complex is when you introduce things like Octoprint and so forth. But when you're printing on an SD card, pause generally works out of the box unless the firmware didn't include the advanced pause feature. And if I recall, I apologize, I think you have to also have nozzle park enabled in the firmware for that to work. If you're issuing M600 and your print keeps going, then obviously it's not in the firmware. You're probably going to have to recompile the firmware or use a system such as Octoprint, where it can read that M600 and pause sending the commands to the printer, because the printer just acts as a dummy I/O node at that point when you're dealing with with Octoprint streaming the data to the printer. So if it's not pausing, that's the first thing I would check. In this case, honestly, I would not recommend just blindly upgrading the firmware, as you don't know what else that may change, and you may have to retune your printer. So if you can also pause it as well too, straight from the the LCD menu if you do have a if you're not running it from Octoprint there. And that's kind of what we did in the old days. We would just go and run the print, and then when we're getting right to that point to change the color, we would just manually initiate the pause, quickly pull out the filament so it doesn't start oozing onto the model, push the new one in, just make sure a little bit comes out, hopefully on an infill, and then start again. Pausing filament, it's interesting, to be honest. I like what comes out of it there, but I don't do a lot of it in my day-to-day. I prefer to print myself.
Okay, I want to
paint.
quickly.
My goodness.
I want to quickly touch on a question that came into me privately this week, and it's about getting filament into your filament sensor. We all have different types of filament sensors. Particularly, the problem that happens when you're trying to put your filament through a filament sensor is your filament is curled. It always is. I've just got a little sample of it here. What I would recommend people do is first and foremost, get a good 6 inches, and then just do this. Pinch it between 2 fingers, and then just get that friction going till it straightens out. And you can manipulate it as you warm it up. Just run it through your fingers, maybe 3 fingers. Now you can see how much straighter that is. And if you've cut that on an angle, it should have no problem going through the other side of your filament detection switch. If you're trying to put it in when it's all curled like this, it's going to curl and miss that hole every time. But what you're trying to get past on most filament sensors is either a wheel or you're getting past a micro switch of some sort. And if this is not as straight as it can be, you will have that problem getting it through that hole. So what you want to do is just warm this up with your fingers, just run it through your fingers. If you have to, you can take a quick run with a lighter, just quickly up and down. I've got a lighter here that doesn't really work. Got one right here. And you're just going to do this really quickly, and then it'll heat it up enough that you can manipulate it a little bit, and then put that straight section right down through your filament switch, and that should be very easy. There will be no blockage. There's very rarely a blockage in a filament switch. The older ones from Creality had a real problem because it would get stuck. That little arm on the micro switch would get stuck in a spot, and then it wouldn't go any further. Or you would grind away the plastic on both sides, and it would get stuck in a channel, and it would miss that arm altogether. So straighten it out before you put it in, and you will have no problems whatsoever. Spear tip the end if you can, and I agree with that. Thank you, Morgan.
Yeah, use those side cutters and spear tip. That helps feed it through. The other thing, too, is here, I've got my favorite, still to this day, 2 years later after the video, the Triangle Lab filament runout sensor. But what I liked about it is that both ends have an opening for a Bowden tube, a little piece of Bowden tube to kind of slip in there. Now, Bowden, the nature of the PFTE material being very naturally lubricated, let's just say, you're not going to have your filament etch away that material, and likewise, it's not going to etch away the filament material. So using a piece of Bowden tube as a guide on any bends that are more than, let's say, 10 degrees is going to massively help any piece of equipment you have, whether it's your extruder assembly or your filament runout assembly or anything like that. I actually don't have it on the machine behind me here right now, and as a result, I've had to have the filament basically feed directly at an angle, which takes up a lot of unnecessary space right now just to get a clean feed. But a little piece of Bowden tube, like even 1 inch, guys, take 1 inch of Bowden tube, use some filament and guide it right up to the edge of your extruder assembly, and then just use a little bit of super glue to glue that Bowden tube to the end of your extruder assembly so that all the gliding is pointed to the point that the filament goes straight into there or into your filament runout sensor prior, basically straight in. It's going to reduce the wear immensely. It's also going to potentially make your print look better because you might be missing micro hesitations from additional torque. Remember, the motors are not intelligent. You give them a voltage setting and you give them a current setting, and they go and move filament until it exceeds the torque rating of that. So when it's really bad, your filament skips. But when it's not really bad, what happens is it pushes, builds up pressure, and then releases through the nozzle as that pressure changes and it warms up. So you might find that one of the reasons your filament's not coming out at the even rate is because the path doesn't have a consistent form of resistance in it. I know it's a bit of a ramble, probably deserves a video on its own, but yeah, save yourself some money this Christmas, guys. Buy some extra Bowden tube and chop up little like 1-inch pieces to put in those pinch points.
And get yourself something like this as a cutter. You can see that it's got a blade in there. And these cutters are great for cutting Bowden tube. And that's what they're designed for. And I used some yesterday on some aquarium soft tubing, which worked out great because I was making a CO2 generator yesterday, which was kind of cool. If you don't know...
So yeah, anytime you're cutting a Bowden... Sorry, I'm just going off on a ramble here, but anytime you want to cut a Bowden tube, don't use those side cutters. Please don't. It's actually going to cause you way more problems. If you can't afford to buy the filament cutters, there's a lot of 3D printable ones, but at the end of the day, you don't even need that. You just need a razor blade.
Yeah,
a
the
nice
other
sharp
thing
razor
is,
blade
if you don't have a razor
through.
blade, I want to just, because you mentioned something about not using side cutters. Now, the side cutters that you have, I'm going to disagree with Brian on this, but because there's a way to do it. What you want to do is, if you're going to have that tube and you don't have anything else but those side cutters, take a piece of your filament, stick it into the Bowden tube, and then cut it with your side cutters. It's not going to crush the Bowden tube because there's something inside to stop that crushing, okay? And then that piece will just fall right out.
Because this is a show where we love to argue with each other, my only return on that, because I have done that, okay? Now, the only problem to that
I haven't done yet. No, not yet.
And it comes down to your hot end. So on my printer behind me, I have the infamous Dragon hot end, that is the Fetus clone, if you will. If you look inside, when you take off all the Bowden assemblies, right up to where it comes in contact with the heat break, the point at which the Bowden tube comes up to that heat break is fully flush. There's no tapered edge to guide any filament deviation down into that tube. So what I had found was I had to have a perfectly flush cut to perfectly seal it up against there. Now, for those of you who have a Bowden hot end where you don't have an all-metal heat break, you also need that Bowden tube to come up flush to the nozzle. And so even though the tube is fully round, if you've accidentally pinched the outsides of the Bowden tube where there's room to move around in that heated area, it can cause problems. So at the end of the day, yeah, you can absolutely cut it with the, and I do this, I cut the Bowden tube with filament in there to reduce the
crush?
Collapse of the crush of the inner tube. Just visually it afterwards and make sure the outer diameter of it has not been pinched either. And honestly, you can usually fix that with a set aside with pliers. Just kind of crimp it a little bit by hand around the edges until it's more round. The more round and perfect the cut is, the better the flush.
Let's move on to the question that's been sitting on screen for a while. Do you know if places like Home Depot sell PLA for printers? I'm new to the hobby. I have an Anycubic Pro Max 4. As far as I know, Home Depot does not sell PLA. If you're going to buy PLA, there's plenty of online sources. Matter 3D is what we fully recommend first and foremost, and they are at matter3d.com. Check out theirs. Yes, they're a little bit more expensive than the average bear, but the quality of their product is second to none. They exceed all of the specifications of any filament that I've used, and I've used a lot of filament over the last 4 years, different brands, different makes, manufacturers, and I will tell you straight up that M3D is probably the best. Next, if you can't afford M3D, I would go with Arion. I like the Arion. You can find them on Amazon. You can get them right from Amazon. Arion filaments, very, very good. Those are the two that I would recommend. Matter 3D being first, but if you need something that's a little bit more economical, that is still a very good quality, then I would go with Arion because you can get it just about on any Amazon around the world.
And not that it's sold in stores, so a little bit of history because we don't talk much about this machine for obvious reasons. Dremel. Dremel
Yes.
made a 3D printer, and they signed a deal with Home Depot. So Home Depot's, at least in Canada, online for a while, they were selling Dremel brand filament. I just had a quick look, and if it was still available today, they were charging $44 Canadian for a 750 gram roll of PLA, and it's not rated anything special. So,
No.
and I think they have a roll in here of nylon for $50. And this is kind of leading into Raymond's questions. What's the opinion on the Dremel 3D?
And I've got
printer?
actually
Richard,
a
why don't
really
you
good
tell
opinion.
the story of Dremel.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit here and bite my tongue and stare at
All
my
right.
other printer.
Well, my opinion on the Dremel 3D printer is it's garbage. It's very proprietary in a lot of ways. First and foremost, their filament. The way that they've designed that machine is no other roll of filament will fit into the enclosed section, because they've made that proprietary. So you have to buy their filament for their printer. Now, can you use other filament? Yes, but you'll have to have it on a stand outside of the printer. Second thing I don't like about Dremels is that they are a complete plastic construction. So if they're not dead level on a flat surface, if they got any kind of twist in them, it's going to screw your print, it's going to screw your bed, it's going to screw everything up. So I would not buy Dremel for just those two reasons alone. Anything else that goes wrong with your Dremel, you have to send it back to Dremel to get warranty repair. And chances are and I've experienced this with Dremel, is that they will tell
That was
you
the
that
nozzle, wasn't it?
Yeah. They will
They
tell
wanted
you
us to ship
that
back the whole printer for a nozzle.
for a nozzle, yeah. So, and they will try and sell you a new machine. Oh, there's so much wrong with this, even if it's just a simple little thing like your nozzle. So, for the money that they want for a Dremel, I would rather put that into a machine that, like I'm running in the background right now, which is the FlashForge Creator Max or the Creator Max 2. You can use anybody's filament. Their filament holders are a little bit bigger. They're made for their style of filament, but the rest of the machine is totally serviceable. And you can 3D print yourself some different filament holders to hold your rolls of filament on the back of the machine, which is what I've done with mine. So I would say that no to Dremel. My opinion is that it's not a very good product at the end of the day for the money that they want. So there you go.
And, while I'm picking some filament off my bed over here, just on a side note, Angus at Maker's Muse brought out a good video this week about Christmas shopping, and the one item I wanted to focus on is there's going to be a lot of 3D printers that don't exist out there that are scams this Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
So do your research when buying a printer. As much as we have our ups and downs with them, I still recommend the Creality Ender 3 for anybody for a first printer.
Yeah, me too.
It's just kind of out of the box. And Richard, after doing several courses, can attest to this with people, that they're the most consistent on having a ready-to-go machine out of the box. Prusa is, don't get me wrong, a great machine, but it's also 4 times the price.
Yep.
So if you've got the money for that, chances are you've probably already done that research and come to that conclusion. But for those of you who didn't know about this deal, I am spitting mad about this. Micro Center in the US right now has this deal for, I think it's first-time customers, quote unquote, so basically a new email address. They're giving you a coupon that if you can walk into a Micro Center, you can buy an Ender 3 for $99 US. And the photos coming out on Facebook of the Americans walking into the stores and just getting these things for 99 bucks. I don't know how many Micro Center bought, but they are unloading these things. And even if it's like the first generation Ender 3, that is still a smoking deal. And I fully endorse you guys to take advantage of it. If it was economically viable, I would have been bugging my American friends to buy them for me and ship them to Canada, but the value is just not there. So American friends, look out for that Micro Center deal. I apologize, I don't know the exact details of the coupon codes, and the nearest Micro Center to us is in St. Louis, which is about 2,000 kilometers east. So, but Micro Center, if we had one in Canada, I would be shopping there all the time. They seem to have every electronic part, every 3D filament. They are truly the maker retail store. So if you have a Micro Center in your area, go check it out and see if they've got some of those DL Ender 3s. I really wish I could take advantage of that, as you can tell.
I want to get to Dominic's question here. He says, I have a tremor in my dominant hand. As a result, my printing ability is poor at best. Would an airbrush be a good investment, or should I wait for the invention of a CNC painter? I suffer from the same problem. The older I get, Dominic, the more my hands shake. So doing small detail takes time. So when you are painting, and I'm assuming that your painting ability and not your printing ability is poor, here's what you do. First and foremost, when I'm painting, I like to bring my elbows into my sides and keep them together. So this is all nice and tight. It's something you'll have to get used to. So it's kind of like a chicken folding in its wings. You fold in your elbows to your sides. Then when you take your hands, let's say, let's see, what do we got here that we can use? Let's say we're painting something on this, okay? So I will hold the figure in my hand. Then I will take this part of my hand and rest it on my other hand as I do that detail. And I will tell you from my own personal experience that it will steady your hand enough to get the detail work done. Try that. Don't wait for something that's probably never going to happen.
I mean, there are arms out there, right? You know, there's been a lot of research into Parkinson's with like the spoons to help patients eat and so forth. And it all comes down to this magical PID tuning stuff that actually 3D printing is pushing along. But for getting a robotic arm to paint, I think the feasibility of it in most of our lifetimes for an affordable $199 cost is probably not going to be there. But sorry, go ahead, Richard.
But that's the way that I would do it. And if you practice, you get into that habit of painting like this, resting your hand on things, you're going to find that when you lay down that stroke, if you're painting something that like an eyebrow, for instance, you're painting an eyebrow, it's just a single stroke, and all you really want to do is have that steadiness. And this is going to do it by clamming yourself up, not tensing up, but keep it loose enough that you can paint that and you can get it nice and close to your eye. If you've got magnifiers, those work really well. It helps to get your point or the point of your brush in the spot that you want it. The other thing is, don't load up the brush with too much paint. I see this time and time and time again with people that load up their brushes. And I thought I had a head down here still, but I guess I don't. I've seen time and time again. Well, here's a good example where people will go in and they will try to do this really quickly. They'll have their hand off the brush or off the model, and they'll try and do this, and it doesn't work. And if you've got too much paint on there and you hit that piece too hard, you're going to leave a big streak, wide streak of paint. So pull the paint when you've dipped it in. Don't go up to the ferrule, and the ferrule is that little metal piece that holds the bristles in. That's called the ferrule. Don't bring your paint that far up. Always try and keep it as close to the tip as possible. And then with a nice steady hand, once you've got everything and you get used to this technique, you'll be able to make those strokes very, very quickly and very easily. Okay? Hopefully that helped you.
Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed the bodybuilders would be right? Less weight, more repetitions, right?
Yeah. Oh, Jerry's sending over another question here from our good friend Peter Reynolds. Said, so I saw a touch sensor on Amazon for a really good price. Do you think it would work with a Creality BL Touch? I don't know. I'd have to do more research into that. I wouldn't waste my money until I know for sure. If it is a 3D touch, they're almost identical to the BL Touch. There's a little bit of coating, I think, that is different on them. But
I mean, everyone's trying to copy each other, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the true BL Touch was the original product of that form factor, and then 3D Touch is I'm going to say the open source clone. I don't know anything about the licensing or stuff. I'm not going to even bother with that. But that being said, It's, in my experience, I've found they're all about the same. But as you're seeing now, like the ones that look identical to the BL Touch are meant to act like a BL Touch. But
Yeah.
as we get these new products like the Creality 3D Touch that comes with the metal pin and so forth, it may be an improvement that runs on the same design, or it may be a different sensor altogether on the inside. Now, honest to goodness, guys, we have multiple printers, and I think we've primarily 100%, unless they came with something third party, gone with the official BL Touch, because the price in Canada is negligible. We're talking the difference between $40 and $50. The only thing that I really, really get, frankly, pissed off with Canadian companies notably, is the price of what they're charging for replacement BL Touch pins. The price, there was a point where I had an argument with a couple of competitors, because I said, look, one guy's selling it for $5 and the other one's selling for $10. And so the competitor dropped it down to $5, which was awesome. But then next month, both of them raised those to $9 each. So I got mad. I went on to AliExpress and found a manufacturer of 3D Touch pins, and I bought 70 pins or something like that for, I think, $50 Canadian. I have been using those consistently in my official BL Touches with no problems. So are we getting gouged? You bet we are getting gouged on those. And they are designed to break to protect the mechanism, which I understand, but they are a consumable enough item that we should be seeing those in the $2 to $3 range, similar to nozzles and heat cartridges. That's my only real thing that really gets me flared up, and understandably, I bet many of you have gone through the same issue.
Hey, I want to say thank you to Robert954, who has become a first layer member once again. And that's a good segue into those of you that are not first layer members. There is a join button below this video. And if you'd like to find out what you can get, and I know I owe everybody I owe our members 2 live streams for our members for the month of November.
There were some questions up there about that. Yeah, there's Morgan's question. Yeah, we are... November was a write-off on everything, on content production, on member engagement, and on even stuff in our lives. So I know Richard has apologized. I will apologize as well. We probably could have said a bit more, but I was honestly too busy to even get to that step. So
and I was sicker than a dog.
Yeah, it's been quite a bit of fun. So
you can ask my wife. I was sleeping most every day extra in the morning. I'd get up, I'd have breakfast. I wouldn't eat all my breakfast, and I'd be off back to bed for a few hours because I just felt so crappy.
And honest to goodness, guys,
I'm not
Richard was
his
so
real
sick
mom.
he blocked most of my calls.
Yeah, I blocked his calls too. It's not a matter of blocking calls so much as it was a matter of I just don't want to talk to anybody right now because I just feel so crappy. And most of you have gone through that. And I have a funny feeling that it had a lot to do with the flu that I had, and it was not COVID. I have both my shots. I'm COVID free. So I just want to let you guys know that it was just the regular flu. It's not the Delta. It's not the new one that they've got some convoluted name for out of Africa.
For us Futurama fans, it's pretty awesome. Omicron.
There you go. I had, and then the migraines didn't help either. So it just kept me on and today though, I feel pretty good for the first time in a month. So, I'm not blaming anybody. I think I probably got something on the plane ride back from Victoria. But it took a few days to germinate, and once it hit me like a ton of bricks. So I apologize for our lack of involvement. But we are getting back. We're going to do probably 2 in December. We're not going to do a Christmas show this year because we want to get all the content out that we had planned for November. So we want to get all that out in December. So there's going to be shows back to back all month long, and we are going to do some more members twice this month in December coming, and then we'll start to do those again in January after the new year. We'll get back to doing them. We're not really taking a break. Brian and I have decided. I know he's going away for about 10 days right around Christmas.
Yeah,
so,
little bit of a story there. So, my brother-in-law, Jess's brother, and family is moving to the United Kingdom for 5 years, and so even with all the things going on right now, we're just kind of trying to have a bit of a nice family Christmas away from everything before they're away, because it's also a very expensive trip to the UK visits. So, just making the most of that. But that's why we're going to try content rolled up and queued up in advance. And anyways, I mean, I really hope a lot of you are spending time with family this year. Hopefully the 3D printing, all the work is done weeks before Christmas, but I know printing up to the 11th hour. But then after that, and I'll tell you guys from experience on this right now, if you didn't buy stuff at the Black Friday prices, it's going to be the same, if not slightly more expensive for Boxing Day this year. So don't be banking on big sales on printers and stuff. Pick up the things as you need it right now, really.
Evening. Well, it's evening in Bulgaria. Welcome, Christopher from Bulgaria. He says, I use Idea Maker, and I have now finished converting my CR-10S to an S5. Well, congratulations. Let us know how it's printing. Maybe put some pictures up on our Facebook page. That would really help out a lot.
That's a big mod, and when you get the bed slinger that big,
yeah.
it's a doozy. I won't lie. I've done a couple of them there, but it's gonna be a nice printer. Christopher Nicholson, can I use the software in the new dimensions, or do I have to adjust it via USB and Marlin? If you for the build volume of the printer, you do have to recompile firmware.
Yes, you do.
It's the nature of Marlin, because a lot of people may not understand. Marlin and all of these things run on microcontroller code. So although there's some parameters that you can put into dynamic memory and have it recalculate, for the efficiency of the system, system-defined parameters, if you will, are usually hard-coded into the printer. You can work around it. The old way was to disable what they called software end stops, which would then allow the printer to travel outside its bounds. But that inherently creates issues if you accidentally try to go negative on your movement directions and have it crash into axes. The point of the software end stops is to have the printer say, whoa, you're trying to go to 325, but your volume's only 300. So I'm going to lock you on 300, but keep the print going to hopefully save your print. So there is the inherent risk of that. My preference is always to recompile firmware if you're doing a major dimensional change to the machine.
I agree with you 100% on that. There's Ben saying just because you have the vax doesn't mean you can't get COVID. That's very true, but I don't have COVID, so.
Yeah, we actually luckily have cheap rapid tests up here in Canada, so everyone who's been sick here, we have gone and got our tests just to confirm it. Truth be told, there is a major sinus infection going around, there's a flu, and we've actually had a very late version of norovirus in daycares. Luckily, I don't have any children, but family that I have does have children. So there are things, and naturally, just because I want to be transparent about this, everyone, because of what measures we went to protect ourselves, we also didn't expose ourselves to flus in previous years. So you might get a flu this year, and it might be kind of gnarly. It's just going to be the nature of things. But honestly, we do like to be transparent about this, but that's not what this show's about. So we're just going to not talk any more about this fun stuff. I apologize. I just don't want.
I just wanted to address that comment. I just wanted to address that comment. So. All right, so Jerry, have you got another question over there? Okay, she's got one ready. Okay.
By the way, you guys know it's winter when you can get cranberry ginger ale again. Yeah.
Have any of you used a filament dual-sided magnetic bed, PEI on one side and textured powder coated on the other side? Does seem as good as build tack. Yes, I have used them, and they work fine. The different textures are for different materials that you're going to use. If you're using PLA, I would use the textured side. That way it can get down into those textures and really grab nicely. If I'm using PETG, I want it on the smoother side, and that's where you're going to benefit. But yeah, they work just fine. I think they're fine beds. If you're getting from BuildTak is the granddaddy of these types of systems. They know what they're doing, so you're getting a good product when you buy from BuildTak. So yes.
Yeah, I mean, BuildTak, they are, don't get me wrong, they make a good product, but the problem I always found was the lack of education on using BuildTak, and if you didn't apply it right, you basically threw your money away. I love these PEI sheets that everyone's coming out with, these textured PEI sheets, but that's also based on the materials that you use. There are a lot of options, and Richard still to this day uses mirror glass with glue stick and has success. So there are different options there. Look at what the best bang for your buck is, honestly, and also review based off the type of machine you're using.
Yep. Can I use the software for the new dimensions?
Yeah, we covered this one.
Yeah,
already.
we did cover this one. Okay, yeah, you have to go in and change it. Gary's just cycling through stuff here.
Yeah, this vMix is a little interesting. Like, I've got the chat up on my other screen here that I'm kind of reading myself here. Oh, actually, Trevor's got a great question up here.
Okay.
Sansa, yeah, we'll deal with this one first. Thoughts on the Voron 0.1? I don't have my full opinion yet because I'm building it right now, and part of the parts that are sitting in Burnaby from 1111 are for the Voron 0.1 build. It's an incredibly cute little printer, but the build volume is, I think it's actually smaller than the Monoprice Mini, so it's got
I think it's like 6 inches by 6 inches or something.
Oh, no, not even that. I've got, you know what, I'm sorry, I don't know where my bed is in here right now, but it's 100 mil by 100 mil, so it's 4 inch by 4 inch.
There you go.
So it's tiny.
The Voron 01, I've done some research into this. It is a good machine if you don't have to build big things. If you're just doing small little things, it's great for that. Do I want to waste? I shouldn't say the word waste. Do I want to spend my money on it? Probably not. But I will say this about it. If you are wanting to build something from the ground up, this is a great project to do it on, because this machine, all the parts are available online as far as the STLs goes, and you can print them on whatever printer you have. The bonus part of this thing, of the V1, is if you want to make parts for another Voron, the V1's great for that because it's fully enclosed and you can run it straight from a computer. It doesn't have a front screen. You can add one, I suppose, and some people have done that, but usually it's run right off of a computer using not a direct connection per se, or does it use? Yes, it does use a direct connection. It does use a direct connection. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a clipper-based system at the end of the day. I don't have, my frame is way behind me here, guys, so I apologize, but this is the size of the plate that the build plate sits on, like that. It is super small and cute. What am I going to be using this for? ABS prints, because I don't print anything ABS that's giant. So I'm going to have an enclosure that's this big. So I think that is practical enough for me. You got to build this one for the sake of what you need to. At the end of the day, I'm kind of roughing the numbers in, and it's actually coming at close in price to buying an Ender 3, to give you an idea.
With a smaller build volume.
That's just with a much smaller build volume. Now, there's going to be benefits and caveats to each side. You know, with this one, I'll put a 0.2 nozzle on it because I'll be printing slow and small, and I want that hyper detail. But you got to have a usage for it. And for me, being a guy who's on the road often, I'm really curious if I can throw that in a bag and take it with me on a flight, or take it somewhere where I just want to print a couple parts here and there, because it seems I can get filament practically anywhere in this country, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. All right, Jerry, what else have you got for us? Here we go. A question from Trevor. Got a question. Do you all know how to do baby stepping in Octoprint?
Yes.
You know more about that than I do.
Yeah, let me, you know what? Oh, this, okay, I apologize, guys. I'm not set up here to share my screen.
Okay, don't worry about it. Just talk about it.
If, when you have Clipper set up, you've got, you know, with Clipper, you can actually do baby stepping by setting a Z offset. And I gotta look up the script in general for most Octoprint it actually comes down to Marlin. You have to set an offset, basically, send a G-code to say all further G-code coming into the printer has to be offset by X amount before sending it to the printer. And
Honestly, I don't like doing that. The reason I don't like doing that is because it's extra processing overhead to put on your Octoprint install, which can cause delays in setting the G code to the printer, which can cause bubbles and blips on your print, which you may not want. At the end of the day, unless you're running Clipper, you really should be doing your Probe Z offset on the machine via its LCD menu prior to sending the code over. And we've kind of talked about before the paper checks with your nozzle, how to go and move around your G code, get the values, and update your firmware. You can also, if you don't want to recompile, you put that offset and send it to the put it at the top of your G code, so it just says all right on the printer side, offset all further commands. But again, that's an unnecessary delay. Sometimes it's also, again, simple, just like we were talking about the bed leveling issues, to make a bigger, thicker, slower first layer to try and absorb that extra room or deal with it so that your print actually starts printing on top of a higher leveled surface than what it was expecting. At the end of the day, of course, the best option is to permanently fix your probe offset, and then to make sure that your probe is anchored properly and that your electrical connections are good. So the number one reason I see this question pop up is when their probe is unreliable, and every print you're finding it's plus or minus 0.2 millimeters or so forth. There is a feature in Marlin called the Probe Reliability Test. I believe it's M46 that you'd have to enable, but that will go and probe the same point on your bed, say 10 times, and tell you what the mean value is, what the deviation, so you can determine if there's something wrong with your probe and or its wiring.
Bring your microphone back up to your mouth. It slipped down.
Oh.
There you go.
It's flexible. Hello, everybody.
Hey, we got a super chat from Peter Reynolds. Thank you very much for the $20.
Super chat.
Great info. Keep it going, guys. He says, thank you very, very much. We do appreciate that.
Thank you. We are here to educate. And likewise, we are here to learn too, because we learn something new every week, basically.
And I'm going to be giving Peter a call later today after the show because he had a problem that I haven't addressed yet. So, Peter, I will be calling you today. Now, Sheldon Grant, what are your thoughts on the Prusa XL? Should I put down a deposit? Now, the Prusa XL, if you're buying Prusa, you're buying a quality machine. I will say that about their products. If you're buying something from Prusa, you're buying a quality machine. Secondly, let me say this about Prusa is if you're ordering it straight from wherever they are in the EU, then you're going to be waiting to get it. Once you get it, and then you put it together. Their customer service is really, really good. I think that their products are really good. Should you put down the deposit? It depends on your budget. I mean, the XL is a good machine.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's other machines that have a better footprint and that have stood the test of time. But at the end of the day, you can't go wrong when buying a Prusa machine. That's all I'm going to say is you can't go wrong buying a Prusa machine.
You got to look at what you're going to be using it for. So the Prusa XL, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're buying it for the base model, you're kind of being a little bit stupid, because unless you plan on, upgradability down the road. So the main thing, if you look at the Prusa XL versus a Voron 2.4 build, is that the Prusa is set up rocks for multi-tool head swapping and all that stuff, which is one thing Voron is not really designed for.
Right.
Pardon me. That being said, for $2,000 US, you're getting one extruder / tool head. If you add a second one on, it jumps to $2,500 US, and if you go for 5 of them, it's $34.99. And that is all self-assembled. You want the fully assembled, you're adding another $500 in general for the build. That is not a small chunk of change. And we don't talk a lot about what I would call the budget industrial printers. I apologize, I can't remember the ones that 4G Vision or whatever in Calgary sells there. There are some the mode printers, I think they are.
Yeah, Modex.
That are high volume. Modex, yeah. there exists a market in there that we don't even touch because our viewers generally aren't getting into that big build range. The Prusa XL is going to be great if you have a pre-established 3D printing business and you need that reliability and that flexibility on the fly with less labor towards yourself. But for a day-to-day consumer, it's like telling a photographer you can either buy a Canon T7i or you can buy a 5D Mark III.
Yeah.
Both of them will do the same thing, but how much money are you willing to drop? Now, that being said, I mean, it does look fascinating. And if you read into it, Joseph Prusa is one of the great innovators in the 3D printing space and puts the effort into the design. But just like when people ask me between the Ender 3 and the Prusa MK3S, I have to ask, do you think you'll get that extra $1,000 of value out of that machine in 1 year or 2 years or whatever? Because past that, there's going to be something new. Why are we building Vorons? And Richard, I know we've been really bad on keeping update on this Voron, but it's just been time availability. The Voron still is our top printer. I mean, I'm still building one right now too, but it's really had to been put on the back burner. We're building this, even though it's like $1,000 in parts, there is a value from a consumer perspective for us on this. The Prusa XL, I'm sorry, there's not. I mean, there will be a handful of YouTubers that will receive one of these units for review and so forth, and they'll say it's the greatest printer in the world, because it will be. However, are you going to buy this? Again, a bad analogy right now because of the current market, but if we went back a year, $2,500 could buy you a fairly decent used automobile to get you where you need to. It had a great utility usage. And you are now talking about spending the same amount for some 2020 extruded aluminum plus some, $500, $600 of electronic components and so forth. It's a very interesting analysis in that it's a great machine and it's probably a great value for its purpose, but do you really need it? So I'll leave that in your pocket to decide. From what I understand right now, it's $199, 10% deposit, and you can change which ones you want to pre-order. Shipping is scheduled for Q2 to Q3 2022, so you're not going to be seeing these until August or something of next year. If you're putting away like $200 a month for it, okay. But there's also going to be import fees when it gets delivered and all that stuff that catches many reviewers off guard. Even with free units, you have to pay for that.
And we've been caught with that plenty of times.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And even some of the people in the chat will attest they've been caught off guard with that before. With a review unit comes up where the import fees, especially for our European friends, are almost the same price because of VAT, buying the bloody printer outright. So, I mean, again, I do love the look of this machine, and I love everything Joseph Prusa does, but I think the cost of it is outside the realm of most consumers, and I think you'd be buying it for a business purpose.
Yeah. I think if you want to spend that kind of money, I would go with something that's going, this is me personally, and you can take this advice any way you like, but I personally would invest that into something I'm going to learn from. So instead of buying the kit from Prusa that is $2,000, I can save myself more than $500 if I was going to build for something like a Voron, which if you go to their biggest one, it's 350 by 350 by 350, which is a nice size. It's just a tad smaller than the build volume on the Prusa XL. But I think at the end of the day, you're going to learn more. You can order in the parts as you're building. Go to the Voron website, voron.com, and just take a look at the 2.4 in the 350 category. You can download the BOM. You can download their suggested places where to buy stuff, which is really good. And that way, I would take a look at that if I was going to move into learning something, which is what I did. I wanted to learn more about Clipper, and I wanted to learn more about multiple boards and the Arduino-based boards, as well as using that with Clipper and Raspberry Pi. So at the end of the day, I would say, yeah, put your money where you think it's going to be used the best. If you want to get into that Prusa XL because you want that name and that experience behind it, then go that route. But if you want to save yourself some bucks and get into a real learning experience, then I would look at Voron, to be perfectly honest with you, or even Rat Rig. Rat Rig's another one that's got really good community around it and a really positive bunch of people that will help you out if you have any problems. Let me tackle this last one from Dwayne King because we are running over today. Layer shift on the Y-axis. Other than belt tension and bed wobble, what else would help fix the problem? Slow down your print. That would be the first thing I would tell you to do, is print at around 40, 45 millimeters per second, especially on a bed slinger.
Bed slingers, the biggest limitation for motion is always going to be the Y-axis, and even with linear rails and stuff, we're not dealing with resistance. What we're dealing with is the weight of the bed.
Yeah.
So it's very rare that you're going to find a bed slinger able to do more than 1,000 millimeters a second of acceleration. And if you do, you're going to have a lot of wobble because, I mean, that's a lot of weight to move on a belt. I have my own opinions that a bed slinger really probably should be on a screw lead than on a belt, but then you can't go very fast with a screw lead either. At the end of the day, yeah, the belt will skip or your motor is going to overheat. I can attest I've gone with much higher torque motors and it hasn't changed anything because your belt has to be a specific material that, although it won't stretch generally over time, it will flex a bit with direction changes and will compress as there is a hard rate of change. So one thing you can try if you really want to try and maintain that stupidly high print speed, and although it sounds it's not really going to do anything to keep that speed, is drop your Y acceleration down. Make sure it's no higher than 500 millimeters per second squared. And on big printers, such as the CR-10S V2, it's shipped at 100 millimeters per second squared, which is why it prints lovely, but you can say, hey, I'm printing at 300 millimeters a second. No, you're not, because it's never going to accelerate to that before it has to decel again.
That's right. Okay, with that said, guys, thank you very, very much for joining us today on our live stream for the last part of November. I know we've been away, and again, I want to apologize.
November's over. Come on.
Thank you, everybody who helped us out with Super Chats today. That really goes a long way to helping out the channel. And that money usually gets put back into stuff that we need. So with that said, we've got a new episode coming this week. I am finishing off the resin episode, which I have to do all the voiceover for. When I had no voice, it was really tough to try and get down here and motivate myself to do it. That's why it hasn't come out yet. And then the Voron will come out, and then we will do a few other episodes. Brian's got some stuff he wants to put out this month, and we are going to do that. And next Sunday, be here to get in on the 5 draws that we're going to make in December to round out the year. And we'll have a lot of fun. So until we see you guys next time, remember that
the first layer is always your foundation to a great print. I'm going to talk over Jerry. La, 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 la.
So until we see you guys next week, have yourselves a great week and stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you then. Bye.
All right, bye for now, guys.
And we're out.